The Bible Study Podcast, Episode 160. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues the study of Acts with Chapter 23. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. As we wind down the book of Acts, you may remember that we left Paul in a little bit of trouble in Jerusalem. He had gone to the temple. There had been a riot that had broken out because they thought he was bringing Gentiles into the temple, and there was opposition to him. Anyway, he is saved from being beaten to death by the Roman soldiers who come quickly from the barracks, and then they try and sort this out. And so at the end of Acts 22, Paul was going to appear before the Sanhedrin, or the ruling body, the religious ruling body of the Jews. So we're going to start with the end there of chapter 22, which we already read, and then continue on into 23. The next day, since the commander wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews, he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul and had him stand before them. And then we continue on with the new chapter, chapter 23. Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." At this the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck." Those who were standing near Paul said, "You dare to insult God's high priest?" Paul replied, "Brothers, I did not realize he was the high priest, for it is written, 'Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people.'" Then Paul, knowing that some of them were Sadducees and others Pharisees, called out in the Sanhedrin, "My brothers, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. I stand on trial because of my hope in the resurrection of the dead." When he said this, a dispute broke out between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. The Sadducees say there is no resurrection, that there are neither angels nor spirits, but the Pharisees acknowledge them all. There was a great uproar, and some of the teachers of the law who were Pharisees stood up and argued vigorously. "We find nothing wrong with this man," they said. "What if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him?" The dispute became so violent that the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them. He ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. The following night the Lord stood near Paul and said, "Take courage, as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome." And so this story starts the journey of Paul to Rome. Paul will speak in Rome. He is told by God now that he will, but it is a long and involved process how he will get there. And this book will end with Paul in Rome, but first he has a lot of other explaining to do. And so he is standing before the Sanhedrin, and Paul gets into an argument with Ananias, the high priest. And at one point Paul says, "I did not know you were the high priest, or I wouldn't have insulted you." But it's not clear how ironic he is being, because it's likely that he would have known who Ananias is. Ananias was well known, although not well liked. We learn nothing more about Ananias from the Bible, but from the Jewish contemporary historian Josephus we learn this. Ananias reigned from high priest from AD 48 to either 58 or 59, and was well known for his avarice and liberal use of violence. And so this is right in keeping with Ananias' reputation. Josephus says he confiscated for himself the tithes given to ordinary priests and gave lavish bribes to the Romans. He was hated by Jewish nationals, and when finally the revolt with Rome begins in 66 AD, the nationalists burn his house, and he's forced to flee, and he's eventually trapped and killed by the Jewish nationals as they're trying to throw out the Romans. So this is the person that is ordering Paul to be struck, and Paul's response of calling him a whitewashed wall sounds a little like Jesus calling the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, clean on the inside and full of dead men's bones on the inside. He's basically accusing that Ananias, while claiming to be in defense of the law, is himself a lawbreaker. Then Paul divides the assembly, probably very calculated fashion, because Paul is himself a Pharisee, as he proclaims in this passage. He is one of these teachers who believes in the whole, what we now call the Old Testament, and they are the people who lead to the modern rabbis. The Sadducees have really died out. They died out with the fall of the temple because they were more of the pro-Roman party, more of the rich people. Ananias is of a type of the people who are cooperating with Rome, and therefore when the revolt breaks out, they're the first ones who get in trouble. And so they are rich. They also only believe in the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Torah, which doesn't mention resurrection and doesn't mention angels, which is why they don't believe in them. And so Paul divides the group so much so that they're afraid that he's going to be torn asunder by just saying, I'm on trial for believing in the resurrection. That is a sore point between these two groups. And so the Pharisees, it sounds like in large part, start supporting Paul, and the Sadducees opposing him. There's so much of an uproar that finally they have Paul taken out for his own protection again through Roman soldiers. And then Paul is told again by God that he will preach in Jerusalem. Continuing on. The next morning the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. More than 40 men were involved in this plot. They went to the chief priests and elders and said, We have taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul. Now then, you and the Sanhedrin petition the commander to bring him before you on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about his case. We are ready to kill him before he gets here. But when the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, he went into the barracks and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions and said, Take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him. So he took him to the commander. The centurion said, Paul the prisoner sent for me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you. The commander took the young man by the hand, drew him aside, and asked, What is it that you want to tell me? He said, The Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about him. Don't give in to them, because more than 40 of them are waiting in ambush for him. They have taken an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, waiting for your consent to their request. The commander dismissed the young man and cautioned him, Don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me. And so a plot comes up to kill Paul. But it is uncovered. It's uncovered because Paul has friends in town, including this son of his sister. And we have to remember that we sometimes treat the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, as if they were a group. They all thought one way and they all behaved one way. We've already seen in the Gospel of Luke, Nicodemus come to Jesus by night. We've seen the well-known teacher Gamaliel speak out in defense of the apostles early on in the book of Acts. So they don't behave, as we just saw, as one person with one thought. And so in and amongst the Sanhedrin, or within the people who are within earshot of the Sanhedrin at least, is one person who reports this plot. And so they report it to the Romans. And it continues, Then he called for 2 of his centurions and ordered them, Get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at 9 tonight. Provide mounts for Paul so that he may be taken safely to Governor Felix. He wrote a letter as follows. Claudius Lysias, to His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by the Jews, and they were about to kill him, but I came with my troops and rescued him, for I had learned he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation has to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him. So the soldiers carrying out their orders took Paul with them during the night and brought him as far as Antipatris. The next day they let the cavalry go on with him while they returned to the barracks. When the cavalry returned in Caesarea, they delivered the letter to the governor and handed Paul over to him. The governor read the letter and asked what province he was from. Learning that he was from Cilicia, he said, I will hear your case when the accusers get here. Then he ordered Paul to be kept under guard in Herod's palace. And so there's now been a plot against Paul's life, but he is rescued by the Romans. Interesting, remember at this point, the Romans, as far in this story of the struggle of early Christianity, are still more favorably presented in the sense that Christianity not being illegal yet, they are the protectors in some cases, as in this case, of the Christians, because Paul, being a Roman citizen, that trumps anything unless there are charges brought against him, and there have been no charges brought that anyone has found to be valuable yet. And so the commander in Jerusalem sends him up to the governor and says, Governor Felix, here's a Roman citizen. He was trying to be killed. I've done the right thing. I've protected the Roman citizen. I'm going to let you sort this out because I haven't been able to. I do like that the Roman commander does embellish his role a little bit. He says, I learned that the man was a Roman citizen, and so I stepped in. Well, that's not exactly what happened. I thought that was all right. I stepped in. I found out I was a Roman citizen, but, close enough. And so Paul is now going to get a chance to speak before the governor up in Caesarea, but we'll do that next week. With that, we're going to bring this episode of the Bible Study Podcast to a close. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment at thebiblestudypodcast.com or send me an email to host@thebiblestudypodcast.com. As always, thanks so much for listening.
For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.